much. The title of the talk is The Role of the Mind in Cheating. Hypocrisy inevitably comes to us precisely because we are covered by a mind which is constantly filled with endless desires. Krishna himself compared this desire to a fire. He says that no matter how much a person attempts to satiate the senses, these desires are never satisfied. Those who have taken up the spiritual path are also faced by these mental desires. Even if such persons do not give the desires an opportunity to manifest themselves outwardly, they may be tearing the mind apart from within. Here, Raghunath Das Goswami compares this state of internal disgrace to a fire and says, quote, "What is the point? There is no need to bathe in all this burning urine. Instead, choose to bathe in the ocean of love for Radha and Krishna and feel like you have been born again." Unquote. Interestingly enough, in the Manu Samhita, in the section Penalties for Various Crimes, it is said that in Vedic times, if a person committed treachery or deceit, the punishment for Kshatriyas, the men of honor, was to bathe them in ass urine. And as a result, all their hair would fall out and they would remain bald, headed to the end of their days. Everyone would know of their crime, saying, "Look, that's a rascal, that's a cheater," unquote. In one way or another, all the disgrace or deceptions we have inside will sooner or later surface and become visible to everyone. Here, Raghunath Das Goswami is warning us not to cheat, exposing ourselves to ridicule by trying to secretly fulfill foolish desire that haven't made us happy anyway. We can consider what happens to those who allow themselves, without even noticing it, to be cheated by their minds. Raghunath Das Goswami talks about this because on the spiritual path, we need to go to the end. Although Krishna says that even small progress on this path can save us from the greatest fear, eventually we will still want to go to the end. And to do so, we will have to completely destroy the pride within. That Raghunath Das Goswami speaks about in even the first verse. So we will continue reading. Now we will dwell in the life of Srila Prabhupada. We are reading from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, volume number 3, and the chapter title as India Revisited, and we are on part number 2. So I'll read one paragraph to bring up to the speed, and then we will continue. On October 13, Prabhupada wrote to his disciple in Montreal as follows. I'm very anxious to go to Montreal. Therefore, you must try your best to get my immigration visa on the basis of my being an authorized Vaishnava minister based on Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That's where we left. So we will continue. Rather than wait indefinitely for permanent residency, Prabhupada decided to apply for a visitor's visa. He went with Achyutanand to the US consulate on Harrington Road. There, in the middle of Calcutta, they entered a small piece of America with everything shiny, new, and efficient. Air conditioner, stainless steel water coolers, electric security doors, US Marines, and American flags. Sitting before the secretary of the consulate, Prabhupada looked small and humble. Quote, I want a visa to see my student in America. Unquote, he said softly. Quote, do you have any letters? The secretary asked. Achyutanand handed over the letters from the temples. The secretary reviewed them and quickly gave Prabhupada a 4-month visa. While leaving the building, Prabhupada remarked, quote, I will just get anything and then it can be extended, unquote. On October 19th, Prabhupada wrote Hayagriva regarding his imminent return. I'm already preparing for returning to USA, and I have obtained a visitor visa the day before yesterday. Most probably, I shall take the first chance to return to USA upon my return from Navadvip. And on October 22nd, he wrote to Umapati Maharaj, you will be glad to know that I have already secured a visitor visa to your country and have asked my travel agent to book my seat on the earliest possible date. I think I shall be in your midst by the middle of November. On October 24th, Prabhupada traveled with Achyutanand and Ramanuja to Navadvip. Although the local train took 4 hours, the lush Bengal countryside gradually revealed its heavenly beauty, and Prabhupada's health seemed to improve just from the pleasant journey. So, how this surrounding can affect our consciousness and health. Wonderful. By the time they arrived at Navadvip, Achyutanand and Ramanuja were also feeling relief from the rigors of Calcutta. For the first time in weeks, they could open their eyes without blinking to drops of perspiration. A large Kirtan party of brahmacharis, mostly member of the Keshav Maharaj Devanand Gaudiya Math, met Srila Prabhupada at the Navadvip train station. The brahmacharis were meticulously neat with the robes all dyed and same shade of saffron. Their Vaishnava tilak marking bold and distinct. Their heads smoothly shaved, their sikha precise. They offered Prabhupada and his party aromatic garlands made from flowers resembling lotuses and gathered around Srila Prabhupada with worshipful enthusiasm. Also present were a few of Sridhar Maharaj's disciples waiting with rickshaws to take Prabhupada and his disciple to their Guru's ashram. Although between the two groups there was an unspoken competition for Prabhupada's presence. He had previously agreed to go to Sridhar Maharaj's place. He promised the member of Devanand Mutt that he would visit them next. Soon after leaving the station, the rickshaws turned onto a road lined with lush tropical vegetation, banana trees, tall bamboos, exotic blossoming flowers. Prabhupada saw simple villagers working near the straw and mud hut, and in the distance, the spire of Sridhar Maharaj temple. A kirtan party greeted Prabhupada at the outer gates of Sridhar Maharaj ashram, chanting Hare Krishna and playing kartal and clay mudangas. Prabhupada entered the temple, offered obeisances before the deities of Radha, and then went to see his god brother. Okay. Sridhar Maharaj was very old, his sight failing, his joints stiff with arthritis. He stayed mostly in his room or sometime on his veranda and moved only with slow, rickety motion. He was an austere and kindly Vaishnava and smiled heartily on seeing Prabhupada and his disciples. In fluent English, he began praising Prabhupada preaching in America, repeatedly using Prabhupada's phrase, Krishna consciousness. Swamiji's work, he said, was the fulfillment of Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that Krishna consciousness would one day spread all over the world. He laughed and smiled and praised the Krishna conscious movement with no trace of jealousy. Quote, so you appreciate this phrase, Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada smiled. Yes, Sridhar Maharaj replied. And the disciple of Swami Maharaj also. And he turned toward Achyutanand and Ramanuja. Quote, with very little effort, your preaching will go far. Unquote. The boys were astonished. This was really something to write home about. Sitting on the roof of a temple in this jungle paradise with old Sridhar Maharaj appreciating Swamiji's work as the greatest work on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. And Swamiji sitting relaxed, grinning and making humble replies. It was the high point of the trip. I think Prabhupada has wrote a letter to Satsaru. My dear Satsaru, please accept my blessings. I have already duly received the invitation from Harvard University. It is understood that they are scheduling me for 20th November between 6 and 10 p.m. I can start immediately on the strength of my visitor's visa, but I'm awaiting for Mukunda's reply for his trying for my permanent visa. Yesterday, we all come to Navdeep. This place is another establishment of one of my godbrothers. It is very nice and extensive place. And my godbrother, B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, has spared one entire nice house for our stay. He has also agreed to cooperate with our society. We shall observe his birthday ceremony tomorrow, and the brahmacharis shall learn how to celebrate spiritual master's birthday. Vyas Puja Day, the observance of B.R. Sridhar Maharaj's birthday was October 27th. His disciple had erected a pandal on the temple road, and about 100 people attended. Sridhar Maharaj sat on his Vyasasana, and Prabhupada and other sannyasis, all wearing flower garlands, sat in chair next to Sridhar Maharaj. Prabhupada spoke in Bengali. Some of Sridhar Maharaj's disciples, inspired by Prabhupada's preaching about the glories of spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, delivered speeches in English as Vyas Puja homage to the spiritual master. Sridhar Maharaj, also speaking in English, gave a very scientific lecture on Krishna consciousness and the senses. Afterwards, Prabhupada told his disciples, quote, he has very high realizations, but he is keeping them to himself, unquote. Every morning before dawn, Sridhar Maharaj sent out a party of brahmacharis to perform kirtan in the village. On Prabhupada's request, Achyutanand and Ramanuja joined them, leaving before sunrise and returning at dusk. Although Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj usually remain at the temple, one day they got into a rickshaws and accompanied the chanting party to the street of Navdeep. The festival at the Devanand Math was a big affair. In contrast to Bhakti Saranga Goswami's ashram in Calcutta, where only widows has attended. B.P. Keshav Maharaj Devanand Math had about 200 brahmacharis and 20 sannyasis. Some of the brahmacharis, however, were not full-time, but were attending school outside. So the ashram atmosphere was little like that of a social club. But when the kirtan and the circumambulation of the temple began, 700 people took part. The no, the impeccably dressed sannyasis, whose very piece of saffron cloth included their cloth-wrapped dandas, was dyed exactly the same shade, danced back and forth before the deities. A dozen sannyasi dance in a group, the danda moving together, dipping and rising, forward and back, to the delight of the brahmacharis. Prabhupada sat on a dais with other dignitaries and spoke to the festival audience. Achyutanand, on Prabhupada's request, spoke a few words in Bengali, bringing laughter and applause. Sridhar Maharaj spoke gravely in Bengali, a sannyasi from the Devanand Math, speaking for their absent leader, B.P. Keshav Maharaj, proclaimed in an impassioned tones that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement had been predicted to spread throughout the world, no one had known how it could be possible. Now, thanks to the work of Bhaktivedanta Swami, it was happening. After a large feast in the evening, Prabhupada's party returned to Sridhar Maharaj ashram. Sridhar Maharaj intimated to Prabhupada that the Devanand month emphasized quantity, whereas his own ashram emphasized quality. Curious as to what this meant, Achyutanan wanted to ask Prabhupada, but the time didn't seem appropriate. After 9 days in Navadvip, Prabhupada was ready to return to Calcutta and prepare for his trip back to the United States. And his two disciples took rickshaws to Navadvip and caught a morning train to Calcutta. On the train, Achyutanan timidly put forward the question that had been on his mind. Quote, Swamiji, what did you and Sridhar Maharaj discuss? Unquote. Quote, oh, many things, unquote, Prabhupada replied. But if I were to tell you now, you would faint. After a silence, Prabhupada added, Still, I've offered him to be president of our society. I knew he would not accept. He is keeping things within him. Anyway, this is all beyond you. Do not have any ill feeling toward any of my God brothers. They are all great souls. There are just some differences on preaching and spreading. Even in your mind, do not feel any ill will toward them. At the same time, do not mix very thickly with them. Achyutanand suggested, quote, maybe if these two sannyasis had each other's qualities combined. Oh yes, Prabhupada says, now you have understood me. So Srila Prabhupada's intention in coming to Calcutta was simply to prepare to leave for America. He had his visitor visa already, but he thought that if he stayed in India a little longer, in San Francisco, Mukunda might be able to secure permanent American residency for him. He went to his sister's house to spend his last days in Calcutta there. But after only a few days, he felt that the Radha Govinda deity, the deity he had worshipped in his childhood, was calling him. When Prabhupada had been no more than an infant, his servant used to take him and his cousin Subuddhi Mulik on a perambulator, wheel them into the temple courtyard and take them before the altar of Radha Govinda. And as soon as Prabhupada could walk, his father would hold his hand and take him before the deity every single day. Sometimes Prabhupada would go alone and stand for hours gazing upon Radha and Krishna, who appeared very beautifully to him with their slanted eyes and fine dress and ornaments. It had been for a pleasure of Radha Govinda that as a child, beginning at the age of 5, he had performed his miniature Rath Yatra festival. Just 2 weeks ago, when Prabhupada had been staying at his sister's house, his health had prevented him from going to North Calcutta to see the deity. So he had gone to Navadvip without taking the blessings. But now, although still weak and although preoccupied with traveling to US, he felt that the deity was calling him. For the past 150 years, the Radha Govinda temple had been maintained by the aristocratic mm, Muliks, a branch of Prabhupada's own family. The Muliks had owned the entire block on Harrison Road, now Mahatma Gandhi Road, and rents from the block-long building opposite the temple had financed the opulent worship of Radha Govinda. In those days, the deities had been worshipped on a gorgeous altar in the large Kirtan hall, and they had been dressed in silk and ornamented with gilded and bejeweled crowns and necklaces. All the pious Vaishnava families of the neighborhood would visit, and on Janmashtami, Krishna's birthday, even British government gentlemen and ladies would come. But today, the Muliks family possessed only remnants of the European art and furnishing that had once filled their homes and temple. Relics from an age of former grandeur and the worship of Radha Govind had pitifully deteriorated. Srila Prabhupada was pained to see the neglect. No longer were Radha and Govinda the center of the Muliks lives. The deity worship still continued, conducted by paid brahmanas. But few people come to see. The main attraction now was the golden deity of the goddess Kali on the large altar in the Kirtan hall. Radha and Govinda in the family for many generations had been relegated to a small upstairs room in the Mulik compound. Their dress was no longer elegant. Their valuable crowns and ornament had disappeared. And there were no large kirtan as before. Only a paid brahmana came in the morning to rub sandalwood pulp on their shining bodies, dress them carefully in whatever simple clothes remained, and place jasmine garland around their necks, while a widow or two watched the silent proceedings. Krishna consciousness was dying in India, dying from neglect. At least it was dying here in Calcutta and in many other places in India, even in Vrindavan. The impersonal philosophy prevailed, and grand old temples had become residence for pigeons, monkeys, and dogs. Sad as it was, they only reinforced Prabhupada's conviction of the need to return to the fertile ground in the West. Although here in India, the spirit of devotion was dying, in the West, it was just beginning to grow. In New York, San Francisco, Montreal, Boston. If pure Krishna consciousness were dying in India, then why shouldn't it be transplanted in the fertile West? There it would flourish. It would spread worldwide and even back to India again. When India, bent on following the West, saw the materially advanced American taking to Krishna consciousness, she would reevaluate her own culture. Prabhupada saw a Krishna conscious revolution beginning in the United States. He didn't consider himself its creator. He was the servant of Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya's desire was that every Indian help to spread Krishna consciousness worldwide. Unfortunately, the very verse in the scripture that prophesied a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement were a puzzle even to most of Srila Prabhupada's God brothers, and they admitted. But soon they would see there was a great potential in the West. Prabhupada had shown many of his God brothers the newspaper articles, Swamiji's flock chanting in Thompson Square Park, ancient trance dance at Stanford University, and he had brought some disciples with him. These were only beginnings. Much more had to be done. So I think the time has come and we should stop. We should be punctual in our practice. And before the devotees leave for their routine, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of their feet by offering Vanchakalpatarubhasya, Kripa Shindu Bhayavacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you very much for joining.